At the end of 2023, Jeffrey McMurtrie of Maps by Jeff finally released his latest effort for Algonquin Provincial Park. In this video, I will explain what you are getting for your money. This map is from 1958, when the park was 65 years old. By this time, Highway 60 has been complete for 20 years. Some of the secondary access roads and campgrounds have not yet been built. Land surveys are still done primarily on foot, and no elevations are shown. You can see how prominently the mechanized transportation corridors are displayed, yet portage lengths are recorded in the number of chains, and many do not have distances indicated at all. So that while Algonquin Park was legally organized and regularly traveled, it was otherwise still a large tract of wilderness with very little written down. This is the Canoe routes map published by the Friends of Algonquin Park in 1990. The road network is more flushed out, with access points designated. The scale is 1 to 126,000. Those routes which are specifically expected to be traveled have been highlighted in order to make the map easier to read. Portage lengths are recorded in meters, and a distinction has been made between those which are regularly maintained versus those which are not. Similarly, some campsites are marked as regular as opposed to low maintenance. There are notations indicating locations of special interest, like historical sites, ruins, forest fires, and dangerous rapids. All of the campgrounds, hiking trails, and special reserve zones appear. The back of this map is a complete book on canoe tripping, discussing every topic imaginable. Still, it is printed on paper. There are no elevations shown, and the portages are vague. This is where Jeff's story begins.
In this photo, we're going to be going to essentially the bottom right corner where it says P29 and there's a 5 that's kind of cut off there. You know, the map tells us we go down the south side of the lake. There's the two bays on the east side. We're going to go down the south bay. We're going to look for that creek, and then we follow the creek to the portage. There's no creek. And it turns out that the map, like I said, was very wrong. That creek doesn't actually exist. In reality, they'd showed that there were these two bays, but there's three. They kind of showed this non-existent creek. Now we're on this next lake, Tonakela. We come from the upper left corner there where it says Portage 970. And again, we need to get to that 400-meter portage. So we go to that bay, and we're like dragging over some logs to try to get the canoe somewhere solid so we can kind of look for this portage. And there's no portage again. So yeah, we're looking for the campsite in the middle so we can pull up the map. And of course, the campsite doesn't exist either. So, okay, fine. We'll go to this southeast bay. So again, we're just trying to get out of the wind so we can open the dang map. Because it's one of those like park maps, it's paper. So if you open it in the wind, you're just going to shred the thing, right? And whoa, wouldn't you know it, both the campsite and the portage were down there. This is where I realized that the park's map was not very good.
This is the adventure map by Chrismar, Jeff's primary competition. It is from 2006. Finally, we have contour lines at 20-meter intervals, and the scale is 1 to 50,000. Shorelines, portages, and wetlands have much better definition. There are lines to indicate expected routes, but distances are only roughly estimated by using the propagation squares. The declination is clearly indicated, and these are printed on a waterproof plastic. For many provincial parks and other paddling areas in Ontario, Chrismar continues to sell the best working maps available. Finally, we have the Algonquin Provincial Park Maps by Jeff, version 6. This one took 5 years to produce, and it shows, as a substantial step up in terms of complexity and detail. Not only is the legend quite long, with a lot of unique symbols, but some of them also include little indicators with their own meanings. Fish species, bird nesting sites, and places to obtain spring water are all included, with compass lines and proper declination. The overall scale is 1 to 50,000, contour interval is only 2.5 meters, and the width of creeks are also drawn to scale. The maps come with detailed information on more than 130 drive-in access points. Fully appreciating this map will require some study. The different systems even have their own color schemes in shades that highlight without overwhelming the view.
You really got to prioritize the information on the map. Everything's important. What do you mean? Like fishing's important, and of course, obviously campsites are important, and portages are important, and I should think like logging roads. Well, those are important if you want to go bushwhacking, and lake elevations and all that sort of stuff. I mean, talking about logging roads for a second. Well, it's not a road map, right? And if you make all the bits of info like really dark and pop out, well, suddenly it becomes, as you can kind of see, a bit of a cluttered mess.
There is a route difficulty guide.
Color-coded routes, so there's yellow for typical, orange for challenging, red for very difficult. The color coding is really just trying to draw your attention to certain spots.
There is a distance and timing system. Common trips are divided up with the distances and expected travel times indicated for each segment.
Right, so the first carry is built in to get you from beginning to end. So if you're singling, which is so much easier, of course, but if you're singling, you can just ignore the time in brackets. If you're doubling or tripling or 1.5-ing or whatever, you just use the time in brackets. So
one thing to notice in particular is that the road network is deliberately in the background, because these are intended to be working maps, for tripping and not driving. The feature that is probably the most useful and relevant to trippers is how each individual portage has its own elevation and gradient graph. Jeff provides these little symbols to indicate the length and difficulty of the hills. They indicate the steepness of the grade and the quality of the trail.
And the portage profiles, those are the little side views on the portages there. And really what you're trying to figure out is, where and most importantly, how quickly there's going to be elevation gain, right? Because that's of course what you're going to feel.
The contour lines have been deliberately muted so that the map is not unreadable. Elevations are colored in relief anyway.
There's a lot more info on the current map you're seeing there than on the previous ones, but it's a lot easier to digest. And it really just, again, comes down to that prioritization of the info you're seeing.
You can really tell that this has been generated by a computer program, and at least the impression it gives is one of extreme accuracy. The printed maps are waterproof, tear-resistant, and buoyant. There is absolutely no competition for these maps.